was a trip, I want to say.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, what genre would we want to call it? Did you ever laugh during the movie?
Yes, I have to admit, that one scene where Luke killed the guy with the finger gun.
Did he actually die, though? Did he die? Or was he just, like, panicking?
I don't know, but it tickled me. I don't know how it tickled me. I think probably just, I don't know, my attention lapsed for a second, but I was just watching the scene and then just all of a second I just burst out in laughter because it was just so ludicrous, but I don't know, it rubbed me the right way.
It was absurd. Like, I think it took me a good half an hour to get into the movie. Like, the first 5 minutes was just. It's just the weirdest because I don't know if you knew all the cast and all that stuff, but you've got the girl, beautiful looking girl, Nina Dobrev, and then you've got Australian Luke. What is his name? Luke Darcy? Luke Bracey?
Spicy, yeah.
Bracey. Then you've got Crispin Glover. Then you've got you introduce a little girl, Ella Quinn, and then you have Clifton Collins Jr. And then you have like Mark Dacascos. And for some strange reason, when I was watching this and I was listening to him talk in the bar, I'm like, okay, he's trying to be Filipino. And then they didn't make any sort of reservations to have Luke Bracey, who was what's his name? He was played as Red. They didn't give him an American accent. They just made him fully Australian, and it was the weirdest thing, dude. Like it took me a good couple of minutes at the beginning just to figure that one out, and then I'm like, no, I'm not gonna figure it out. I'll just let it go.
I gotta admit, like, just having Nina Dobrev as French and then Red as Aussie and then Leroy as your prototypical African American, it took a long time for my ear to kind of really get used to that blend of accents all in one scene.
I don't know if you could call it a blend. It was just all over the place when you first heard it. So you're just like, you're in America. You've got all these different nationalities, and then Mark Dacascos, in his short role, I already know that he's half Filipino as well. And then he was trying to put on the Filipino accent as Lou. Um, it took me a while. I don't know if it was really a blend. It was just so out of place. And then I've known Nina Dobrev um, in some of her roles, and don't really watch too much of her TV series, but in some of her roles where yeah, she's American. I didn't know that she spoke French, and then I found out that she was Bulgarian Canadian. So I was like, okay, um,
Weird mix.
weird mix, but clearly a good mix in the looks department. So she came out well. But in terms of the languages and whatnot, I didn't expect this movie to have a lot of heavy French influences.
And it didn't like, even the kind of backstory didn't really offer a lot of clarification about where it kind of came into. Like, you got the backstory that, there was a job that they did in France, things went to kind of hell, he went to jail, Luke's brother was involved, but that's about it. Like, it doesn't really clarify much more than that. And again, it just, I don't know, it just didn't really sit well. Like, got to a point where I was just really just overhearing the French accents. Like no offense to the French accent, I just think in this particular movie it was just a bit too heavy on the tongue.
Yeah, it didn't sound. It sounded like. Yeah, I have to agree with that. Like, the where you talk about the story part, I was thinking about it as well on my drive home from work today. I was just like thinking about it, going, it's kind of like one of those movies where there's not a lot explained, and it's kind of as if like the viewer is walking into the story kind of like midway, if you know what I mean. Like there's some movies where you just walk in or the movie starts and it's like in the middle of something or at the end of something but beginning a new chapter. But you're never going to see the chapter beforehand with, say, flashbacks or anything like that. It's exactly as you say, where, there's this guy who's this Crispin Glover who, by the way, plays, damn, he plays a really creepy assassin. Um, Kind of reminded me of the assassin when he was in the old Charlie's Angels movie, where he had the sword and he kept on sniffing their hair.
Oh yeah, he sold creepy really well, and I assume we're going to go into a bit more detail in the scenes later on. But the bar scene probably, yeah, sold the
That
creep
was,
well.
yeah, that was possibly, that was probably okay. Well, yeah, we'll talk about maybe a couple of like minute or two, but he played the crazy assassin that pretends to be French really well, because obviously when they say the words like, I mean, I know he probably tried very hard to use that accent, but it was just weird for him to say. I think at one stage one of his lines were, you do not like or you look like a couple of faggots where you know the you don't even prefer the penis or the vagina, and I'm like, I don't know if that's how like French English speakers would sound, but it's hard for me to say because I've never heard it in cinema, and I don't think I've heard a Frenchman ever say vagina like that. But you know what I mean? It was a little, it was off, and you notice how like during the movie he doesn't speak a lick of French. He just speaks it like in this French accent, which is really funny.
Really, like doesn't even occasionally drop a couple of French words between. Like, you see some French English actors who will like they'll speak a little bit English, but then drop a French word in between, particularly like when swearing or frustrated or a bit of anger. But him, it's just this straight weird French accent, which I kind of really compared to Sasha Cohen in Talladega Nights.
Yeah,
That kind of weird French English that you just listen to, you just like, it ain't right, but I'm working with it.
yeah. It's like it ain't right to the casual viewer, and then you hear the French, and they're just like, "Oh, that's not right. That doesn't sound anything like what we would sound." So he played a really good role, but we'll definitely talk about that bar scene later. But I just think that this movie, I don't know what genre I put it in because I don't think I laughed at any point. There was definitely a couple of gasps, but it felt like the movie was very raw. Like say for example, like I did check it in the timestamp. Luke Bracey's character Red and his wife Honey Bean, Chloe. He keeps calling them Honey Bean and Bumblebee. It's again, it sounds really strange when it's in an American setting, an Australian lead actor, and then French Americans around them or whatever with French accents. Anyway, like the first 5 minutes, literally saw the timestamp where he gets out of jail and he just engages with like this raw sex with his wife, and then they're like doing it, and the dog is just like casual like barking and getting in the way, and I'm just like, that's a little too real. For those who have pets and stuff like that, I would have thought they would have maybe put that away, or even just the rawness of that sex scene. It was like, okay, the first 5 minutes kind of set that a little bit of that foundation to think like, okay, this is going to be a possibly a raw movie, and then all of a sudden, like the language that happens later, and the violence as well, yeah, it just ramped up, and for me it was more of a ramp up where it's like, like I want to turn away, but I just gotta have to keep watching to see what happens next, even though I rewatched it the night before today.
I'm actually still going off memory, so I'm still digging through the memory banks of everything that happened. But thankfully, good memory when it comes to films. But I absolutely agree. Like it started like it was going to be a nice pace, and then the sex scene with the missus very raw, um, very real. So like it's probably correct. If you had pets, they'd be getting in the way. Particularly, if the dog's yours, he's going to want all the attention, not the missus. So very true and very real. Which there's time and place for reality in films, which sometimes sits nicely, but in this case, just because of the tone, like probably could have eased up in a little bit. Maybe had the dog interfere once and then bug him off for the rest of the scene. But again, like it just they finished and then they're laying there and then it's like, enter little girl, here's your daughter, and it's like, wait,
It's like,
what?
whoa, whoa, yeah, it was just
Literally,
whoa.
let's just put. in the room. Let's bring in Grandma while we're at it. Have her cook us breakfast.
Grandma or the maid?
Yeah, even there we go again with languages. The Spanish maid who
The
also
Spanish
speaks
maid
French.
speaking French. I was just like, whoa, that's. And then her confronting Crispin later. It's like, are you Mexican? Oh, you speak the language of love. I was like, oh god. And yeah. So moving on from that, and then we get to all these other characters like Leroy and not Leroy, it's Leroy, and then finding out about these bearer bonds and all that stuff. And then I think the only one other than Nino Dobrev that I knew of was Clifton Collins Jr., who was the Ernesto Sanchez, who was the parole officer for for our main character, and he was pretty cool. Raw again, excuse me, raw again with that language. Like it, it was definitely not. I mean, I know it's made by who was it that made it? Jeez, Roger Avery. I'm not very familiar with his work, but it just says like on the poster. I think it says like what is it from the creators of producer of True Romance or something. Um, and Pulp Fiction as well. So I'm just like, Pulp Fiction had a certain, I don't know, it was certain. You feel because Pulp Fiction was done by Tarantino. Even at the time, if you didn't know of Tarantino, it just felt there was something unique about Pulp Fiction. And then you look at Lucky Day, and there's possibly some if we had to be for me if I had to be very generous, there's possible some unique stuff in it, but it just felt more of I think at the second half or the third act or however you want to put it, then it became cliched. It came like with the bow wrapped and whatever. But during it, it just felt like a whole mess of like, where's the story gonna go? And she's a failed, or she's a artist or some sort of artist, French, trying to make it big in America and all that stuff. And her daughter speaks fluent French. This guy's come out of jail for a job that he did with a banking firm, and then he's got a friend that they own a like a locksmith shop or like locks and stuff like that. It was a little bit all over the place. So when it finally came together, I think in the sort of like the second-ish, the third-ish act, then it's like okay, then the cliche started to happen. But I should ask you though, and I've got a feeling I know which one's your answer. But what was the sort of scene that stood out to you?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I'm gonna go with the bar scene.
Yeah, it's got to
That
be the
one,
bar scene. Oh my god.
it's got to be the bar scene.
Oh
Like
my
that just kind of
god.
really set the tone.
Oh my god. Like he's like, okay, he's the tool man. He gets him tools, gets him all the guns, and then gives him his girlfriend. And the guy murders the girlfriend after having like loud, rambunctious, like massive sex in a crappy pub stripper toilet, and just
And then
kills her.
then has the audacity to throw the used condom at him.
Yeah, filled with jizz inside, by the way. Still filled with it. He goes, take care of this for me. And I'm like, what? It's like, I'll play my favorite song. It's like, where's Sabine? Oh, I fucking killed her. I slit her throat so then I don't have to deal with that post-coital talk of rubbish and shit. And I'm just like, sitting there. Obviously, that's not what he said, but he just slit her throat after all that. I'm like, this guy is like ruthless. He's really ruthless. For I don't know. It was just it just felt unnecessary.
It's literally like in just again out of nowhere, like no context of his character, not really knowing that he's like that, and it's just like here he is wanting to get ammunition for something that still at this point we're really not sure what Luke's play is. Like we know he's there, he's wanting revenge. It's probably to do with Red. You can make that assumption, but again, it's just like, yep, he goes and has a look at his guns, gets what he needs, bangs his girl, kills her, throws a used dummy at the guy, and then murders literally everyone in the bar. And it's just like, you, what indicated that this had to be this violent?
There was no indication, considering I think the only the actually no there was an indication for the violence, but there was an indication for why he decided to kill. I don't know why he killed the Cascos and the guy's friend because they didn't know, but the bartender was apparently was embezzling from his organization, the connection, which was a nice. I think it was good that they actually said that in the one sentence. That did you know that he was embezzling from the connection, and I'll let you live this and this and this. And this was after he just completely like shoots the Cascos, Mark the Cascos, and just bloodies him, and everybody runs out of the pub, and then he proceeds to kill them, and then the shotgun round to the guy's head, and he's just flailing about until he hits near the dance floor near the stripper, and the stripper's just mindlessly dancing, doesn't know where she is, and the body just flops. I was just sitting there just going, okay, that was definitely a. I gasped when he blasted his head off. Ugh, it was very visceral.
It was it was up there, and like again, like I shouldn't have, but I did giggle a little bit when I saw the stripper just still dancing, unaware of this body flipping around. Because for a split second, the floppy body did look like it was doing a bit of a dance to the music and then flopping.
Yeah, like a what is it, like a headless chicken or some shit. So yeah, I think that particular scene was the one that set the tone for everything because after that you've got a weird story about Chloe, um, Nina Dobrev's character, working with a curator to put up her works and stuff, and he's just obsessed with her, even drawing a fake mustache on his mouth. Did you notice that?
Yes, and actually, I was actually really happy to see David Hewlett because
Stargate.
I was a fan. Stargate Atlantis,
Hmm.
yes, and again to his methodology, he's always played that really good kind of like sniffing your hair from behind kind of character. So I think this role suited him well, and he played it well, and he took it over the top when he needed to, and it worked really well for me. So like between him and Clinton Collins Jr. is probably my two favorite characters in the entire film.
I think so too. Like, I didn't really give a damn about the child. I didn't give a damn about the Australian guy. And I sure as hell didn't really give too much of a damn of Chloe. All I just know was just, it was more of a, by the violence and part, I just wanted to see why Luke was chasing them. Why Luke was, which was Crispin Glover's character, why was he chasing them? And they just sort of gave that away at the very end and tied it up in a neat bow. It was just cliche. And then they decided to even have that sort of again two breaking the fourth wall moments where you have him and he's about to do a suicide or whatever, which I thought the effects for his suicide were stupid. I don't know if you felt a little bit let down by that when he blew himself up.
It was when you do the bar scene, the ensuring him traveling to the art show, taking out the police, the finger gun death, possible death, the shootout in the actual gallery, and then finally his actual suicide. It was just kind of like filling up a giant balloon with confetti, sparklers, everything, and then when it pops, it just kind of all falls to the ground. So it's like it's really big build up, but disappointing delivery.
It was a disappointing delivery because you would think that with the kind of C4 that was strapped to him, that would have taken out that whole underground part, but it just that whole underground loft, which you just didn't, and then him sort of breaking that fourth wall, going as he pops the safeties off the explode the little primers, and he's just like my lucky day, and I'm like,
All credits.
uh, yeah, kind of roll credits because I was just like, okay. Now that I think about it, when he said it at the time, I was like, okay, how does the title play into this particular story? Where's the lucky day going to come from? And then, sort of cliched at the very end, where you have that second fourth wall moment where the girl actually points and looks at the camera and goes, Finny, the end. And I'm like, okay, that's another fourth wall breaking moment. And that was after the reveal that with another scene which we haven't talked about, which was her gallery, um where she's like looked as if like she's being painted as a fraud. She's a shit artist. It was just looking dismal. And then the gunfight um ensues where Luke is of course trying to kill them after he's actually, oh my god, after that standoff with the maid as well with the knives.
Gotta admit, that was actually a really nicely done scene. Just for the maid, like for me, it kind of gave her a little bit of essence apart from being just the stereotypical maid who's trying to be made not stereotypical because she speaks French, but it kind of like set a really nice tone for her character and like what she actually meant to the family, like the fact that she'd be willing to actually throw down like that and put her own life on the line for the kids. So for that was like a really good wrap up of character development. A little bit too late for my liking, considering she'd been on the screen a fair few times before then. But it really set the tone for the family bond side of things for me. But again, just too little, too late for me.
I wanted some redemption actually in that particular scene where they were facing off and she's got her own knife and she was flicking around with it because it's a butterfly knife. I'm like, all right, this girl got skill. I was waiting maybe there was going to be an actual fight, like maybe some sort of street sort of. Yeah, I don't know. I thought there was going to be a knife fight, but I guess due to maybe putting some realism into it, she went for the lunge and he just ended it very quickly. And we didn't even know what happened to her after that night until we finally they had burnt her ashes and they kept her. Um, but anyway, going back to before we go to the end of the movie, because I don't know what else I could say about this movie. I just don't know. Um, that scene that we missed is where they're in the gallery and a gunfight ensues, and all the bullets that they're supposedly firing at each other, because Crispin Glover's got a has got a rifle, and the only one shooting back at him is Clifton Jones. The parole officer who's only got a six shooter revolver, but apparently all these bullets that the assassin is just shooting at is just going everywhere and it's spewing blood and whatever everywhere. And I was like, okay, I was thinking to myself, okay, this was an okay scene. And then when I was just seeing them, focus on the blood and the art, I kind of pieced together what the ending would be, kind of. But I was like, but I was thinking to myself, okay, let's move on. I don't want to guess. I hate guessing in movies. Let it unfold, you know. Because when I used to guess movies when I was younger, I went and then the ending came or the near, you can see what the ending will become. You just become deflated, or I became deflated, and then I would just sit there, uh, just just sighing and being real pissed off that I guessed it. So I let it unfold. And then, of course, at the very end, before that fourth wall breaking moment with the girl, we find out that it is their lucky day because the art that she had sold, which doesn't make sense because it's like because I believe it's like a week later or roughly a couple of weeks later or something sold, made a lot of money, and that yeah they're not going to be in poverty anymore. It was her lucky day. And then I thought, realistically speaking, I thought that all because it was the critics of the blood of the critics all over her sculptures and all that stuff. I would have thought that all of that would have been confiscated as evidence.
Yeah, no, literally, it would have been, and it was actually probably. I'd actually say it's probably more like 6 months because in the scene where they find out it's their lucky day and the painting's sold, like they've got a few notices, powers getting turned off. So safe to assume that they'd probably been in the house for at least a couple of months and
They
just
were
not
still
paying
injured
bills.
though.
But true, which again, the movie didn't know where it was going. Let's be honest. um, but yeah, no, I can kind of get that it would sell to very weird sellers who are like collectors of murder related things, but not that quickly. Like the amount of like investigation that would have been done, bodies getting taken out, then being like, whose blood is that on that painting? Let's find out. Like all the testing that would have done could have even ruined the paintings, to be honest, because they would have had to spray it down with chemicals, cleared out who done it, fingerprinted it. probably would have ruined the painting more than anything. So, again, movie did not know where it was going. Tried to be unique, which it was fun, but again, I kind of just sat there and I'm just like, I'm not buying it.
The cliche with the bullet as well being caught by the key. Um, again, it all tied up in the very end. I think, as cliched as it was, and I would have to agree. I don't know where it was going, but I can tell, or I felt it that I could tell that. Again, I think it was just one of those movies where you don't get a lot of you don't get a lot of background, and if you do, it's sort of one sentence, which is okay. But it's more of a movie that did not have a start, and it did not have really a definitive end. It's more of just a look into their lives at what had happened from before and how it unfolds to be their lucky day. And then, yeah, credits roll. And interestingly enough, I stayed for the credits, and it's just all it is just that main character walking backwards and forwards in his 6 by 11 cell, just killing time. Did you watch the credits?
Didn't actually. I'm kind of slightly regretting that I didn't.
Yeah, he just literally just walks backwards and forwards, um, and through the whole credits, and he's looking directly at the camera as if like it's not there. I think he was trying to get his exercise in his cell. And then at the very, very, very end, there's some guy who rocks up at the immigration at the American airport, and you hear the guy go, "Please take off your glasses," because he's wearing sunglasses, and then he takes it off, and then he's just wearing prescription glasses, and then it just cuts, and I was just sitting there, just going, "What, what did this mean? This must be some sort of inside joke that I don't understand." That they just decided to put in. So it just felt. I don't want to be too generous because the first time I watched it, I was I just like I want my 90 minutes back. And then the second time I watched it last night, I was like, I want my 180 minutes back. I was just
Yeah.
I just couldn't I don't know if I would want to even recommend this to this is how bad I would probably rate this movie. I don't. It's just kind of. It feels average. Like as far as I know from IMDb, I think they rated it like just under 5 or 4.8 or some shit. The last I saw, but
Currently at 4.9.
it's currently 4.9. Okay. Um. Now my sister has been with her partner for a good more than 8 years or whatever, and he's French. Like he's fully French. I don't even want to suggest this movie to them. They're probably going to listen to this podcast and go, "Oh yeah, um, what kind of movie did he listen to? Oh, did he watch?" Like I wouldn't even offer this to them. No, like he would probably just watch it and go like, "This is the worst shit I've ever seen." And he's proper French. He'd be like, "No, that's not what we sound like," or "This guy is just clearly off his rocker," or they would not understand the story. I don't know. Or maybe it will entitle them to watch it, but I've got a feeling they'll be like, "Hey, hey man, can you give me my 90 minutes back?" They'll say the same thing.
Who knows? Maybe they might actually be able to give some insight that we missed throughout the film, and he might be able to give us the French perspective.
I don't know if there's
Who
gonna be.
knows?
I don't know if there's gonna be a French perspective. He'll probably just look at it and go, "This shit was just shit." It's like, why did I waste my time with this crap? And even I'm thinking, like, why did I sort of waste my time with it? Though it was good to see that when I finished it, for a movie of this particular caliber, it had some interesting like trivia that IMDb was showing. But okay, now I'm stretching. I just out of 5, I'd give this like 2.
Yeah, no, I'd stick around the 2 mark as well. Just when I like watch it and rethink about it, I'm just like, it was like watching Crank, but on heroin, but also trying to be aware of itself,
Yeah, but
which
hold on, Crank was good though.
it was good, but like again, Crank was like another one of those films where it was just like all over the goddamn place. Like you had no idea like you had the idea what was going on, but it was just fucking like everywhere. It was sporadic, and
But it
it
had a
felt
neat. But hold on, the reason why Crank I think was actually good was because it had to be sporadic due to his situation. This one was just sporadic because of just wanting to. I think it felt like it wanted to just show violence and sex and swearing to a degree that it wasn't really thought up dialogue. I don't know. It just the dialogue felt out of place. But with Crank, I think that it was sporadic due to his situation because of his heart.
And this is what I'm saying. Like, hear me out. So sporadic. Like, yes, Crank was sporadic because of his situation, but like, I feel like they tried to take that essence with Lucky Day to kind of get that sporadic situation in, but because of literally the chosen ethnicities of all the characters, it just really just screwed over to the point where you're just sitting there and being like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, okay. I don't know. I don't know if the ethnicity of the characters played a role in it. But what do you mean by that? Like, do you think that it was maybe a bit too diverse, or was it just it wasn't it couldn't find an identity, or
Honestly, like, it was the Aussie. Like, for me, the Aussie in there just, I don't know, threw it out of whack for me. Like, he was too Australian. Like, for a guy that's been to France, done work in France, been to jail in America, released in America, and he still has that full blown fair dinkum Aussie tone, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I've had plenty of mates that have gone to the States for like 6 months and they come back and their accent has just changed just a little tweak because of where they've been. And the fact that he's just still Aussie, I'm just like, I can't get my head around it. It didn't sit right with me. I'm just like, it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. I can't break this.
so you thought that maybe he would have adjusted to either maybe having speaking French or even having an American accent if he was living in America? Is that kind of thing?
Literally. Like even having a maid who's learned how to speak French and yet he doesn't even know how to learn a word of it. It's like, dude, you're married to a French woman. You were in Paris. You have a child to a French woman. How the fuck do you not even know one word? Like, come on.
Well, okay. He was learning in prison. I'm not. I don't know why sounds like I'm defending him. He was learning in prison, which we saw in the beginning, but also you notice in the situation of where his blood is pumping and stuff like that, the French came out. He was telling his kid that was trapped in the Kruger 88 to calm down and Papa will help and blah blah blah. That's when the French came out during the time of duress,
And
so to
another
speak.
river of a great cliche.
Yeah, that's actually another
That's,
cliche. Yeah,
that's actually, I think that's what we call this movie, the movie of cliches.
that's actually true. Well, I've seen other movies that have way more cliches than shit, but yes, that's actually you're right. That's another cliche where he's speaking in duress and it's in French and it just comes out and whatever. But yeah, I think they didn't portray him well. Like they portrayed him as being this. I mean, he did just get out of jail. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm just trying to think that the span of the story of this movie was over maybe 2 or 3 nights since he got out of jail. 2 or 3 nights or
Give or
something like
take.
that. Yeah, it wasn't long. So yeah, I know where you're coming from in terms of you would think that he would have had some sort of adaptability, but at the same time, it kind of felt as if that um, they made the character kind of dopey. Like,
Yeah, which again was like a little slight dig at your atypical Australian, which I'll take it on the shoulder like we all do, but come on now, a
could it
bit
be?
better than
Yeah,
that.
could it be a bit? Yeah, could it be a bit too stereotypical, like you said in the beginning, like the African American, the French woman, the French child, the Australian, and then you've got the Mexican parole officer. And then the maid who's Mexican but speaks French, so there's a bit of maybe stereotyping there. I don't know, but it just felt as if this movie just felt like it was a mess. It was just an honest mess for the first, for me, 30, 35 minutes, and then it sort of clicked together, and then like I said, I don't know if I would be wanting to suggest this movie to anybody to watch.
No, I feel like honestly, this if I was gonna categorize a group of people to suggest this to, I would probably say your teenage boy between 14 to 17 Friday night, pizza and some Coke with some mates who just want to watch a silly movie with violence. This is probably right up their alley.
Oh my god! And let's not forget the kid can turn invisible.
Yeah, that was weird. Let's not get that any more than that.
Yeah, I don't know what that work says. So I just recently, as you were speaking, just picked up some information from IMDb just to double check it and what I'd forgotten. But yes, it's apparently supposed to. This whole movie is supposed to happen in one day, and I just realized it's supposed to. Where he gets out of jail during the day, does his wife, then the opening for the galleries that night, that same night that he gets out of jail, and then at night after he goes to the loft and burns the bearer bonds due to the explosion, and then the next day or whatever, that's when they hear about the money that they've made. See, that's even crazier than what I just said. Oh shit.
Literally, we just made it worse than we made it worse for
I've
ourselves. We
just made
kind
it
of
worse for actually just finding that out. Oh my god. This that's just
we had
shit.
hope for a second. Oh, that is way too much for one day. I'm sorry,
Oh,
going
I
to
don't know.
work.
Hold on a second. What about Jack Bauer's 24?
Oh yeah, but that's kind of comparing oranges and lemons, though, isn't it?
Yes, I know. I jumped the gun. I'm sorry. Um, um, yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think I've just made it worse by reading the IMDb thing saying that it's supposed to be a single day.
You're giving me a challenge now. I'm gonna have to rewatch it, and I'm gonna watch that movie, and I'm gonna try and find a freaking clock in every scene to try and figure out the timestamp.
Oh man, that's so Joker. Shut up, man. That's so
I need to
jokes.
know now. I need to know if there's ever a clock in any scene now. I need to know.
Oh no, that movie set you apart now. What the fuck?
Broke me. Broke me.
It really did. Because when I watched it, I'm just like, okay. Because everybody was like talking about it on Facebook. I'm like, okay. And then I was just looking out for it. I'm like, oh, what have I done? What have I done?
Then you go and ruin it all by doing something crazy like give it to me.
And then you're going to watch this movie and going to try and find out the clocks, which I don't ever remember them talking about time.
Really, I can't recall the scene where they're just like, "Ooh, look, it's 12 o'clock. I need to go."
Uh, well, not specifically, but yeah, I don't think they really mentioned the time. But all I know is that this is not a movie that I don't know. I don't even know if I want to keep this in my collection. Actually, it's just that
Yeah,
bad.
no, no, definitely. If we're talking about time, then probably best to say, don't waste your time on it.
No, no, just like not wasting your time on Predators. I don't even know why I have that in my collection.
Don't go down that hole. That's a dark hole.
You know the Shane Black one, yeah, the Shane Black one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. He did Iron Man 3. Fuck that guy.